timed by Nancy right here, so keep an eye on her. And she will give you the wave when your time's up, and 2-minute closing statements. So with that being said, let's start with Sarah on opening question.
Just about opening statement?
Yes, sorry, opening statement, I'm sorry.
Okay, Sarah Sarda. I've lived in Yankton for over 20 years now. Graduated from Beresford High School and attended University of South Dakota. Right after that, my husband, who's a local, we moved to Texas for about 10 years, and then right when our children got about school age, we decided to move back to Yankton. I was fortunate enough, or we were both fortunate enough, that we were able to come back to Yankton and each have professional jobs. I worked for almost 17 years at Mount Marty University. It was Mount Marty College. When I was there, I served as the Vice President and Dean for Student Affairs. Then I had a medical issue that kind of took my life off an entire different trajectory. During that time, I was able to stay home. I was fortunate enough, my first and only grandbaby was born. So I was able to stay home with her for the first few years of her life and take care of her. And then was also able to take care of my mom, who was aging and taking care of all those things that come along with it. I have 3 children. I guess I should say I'm married to Dave Sarda. You might know who he is. He served on the Yankton City Commission for many years and then took about 3 years off and then decided he needed to get back in. And so now he's back in. He really enjoys it, loves to be a part of all the decisions that go along with the city. We have 3 children. Our oldest is Sam. He's a full-time student, full-time non-trad student at University of South Dakota. Has our granddaughter, Sunshine. We have our son, Lucas, who's 25 years old. One of the reasons why I'm passionate about education is our son was diagnosed with autism at age 3 years old. So I have been a part of the special ed, regular ed, and disability world for a long time, not just locally, but at the state level. And I also have a daughter, Anna, who is a junior at Augustana, is a traditional student. That's
You're good.
That's good.
Go ahead, Lauren, if you go next.
First of all, thank you for Interchange and for Thrive for hosting this, and also too, thank you for taking time out of your day to come and listen. My name is Lauren Nelson, and I am the Republican candidate for State Senate for District 18. I am a teacher by trade. I have a double major in elementary education and special education from Dakota State University. And I also have my master's in educational administration from the University of South Dakota. I am married to David, and we farm north of Yankton. We've been married for 30 years now, and on that farm we have raised 3 children, Mary, Beatrice, and Frederick. Currently, I am serving on the Planning and Zoning Board for Yankton County, and through that board I have been able to serve on the Roof Task Force and the Solar Task Force that have just completed here this year. I am a member of the Yankton County Sharpshooters. I am their treasurer. And I hope on November 5th that the people of District 18 add state senator to my resume.
Oh, got it. Thank you. Good afternoon. And once again, thank you for coming and joining us today for this forum. My name is Julie Auch. I am currently serving as your representative for District 18 in the House of Representatives, and it is an absolute honor and privilege to do that for you. Married to Gary, he is we farm in the northwest corner of Yankton County. I'm a lifelong resident. Right here in Yankton, I attended Utica Public School when I was in elementary. Of course, came into Yankton, graduated from YHS, and then went on to earn my bachelor's from Mount Marty College right here in Yankton. So roots are pretty deep. I am a 3rd-generation business owner, a business that my grandmother started here in Yankton, the New York Life office. My mother took it over, and now I have been a New York Life agent for 20 years. So true believer in small business and also businesses here in Yankton. We have 4 children. 4 children, Cody, Cassandra, Kelby, and Corbin. They're all grown, 2 married. We have 7 grandchildren, and I'm very thankful that they all live close by. So extremely invested in Yankton County and want to continue to serve in District 18, and would find it once again a privilege to serve you in the House of Representatives. So please vote November 5th.
And then Paul.
Good afternoon. I am Paul Harens. Many of you know me as Mr. Harens because I probably taught you, or I taught your children, or in some cases, grandchildren. So keep that in mind.
There you go.
Anyway, I'm back. She's one of my former students. So I went to Harens College, which is now a water park. Then I was taught out in Pierre. Then I moved, went to the university to work with my master's degree, got that done, and I came to Yankton. I taught here for 31 years. I was a debate coach. I was the oral interp coach. I also had student council, which is one of the best things I could tell you that matches politics to the T. When they had a convention, they had to learn to get along together or they didn't get anything done. I also taught a number of different courses, which was also different. I was at one time, I was in 3 different departments. I was in the social studies, the language arts, and the home ec department. Mrs. Hornster could tell you how I did that, because I was teaching the same course she was. I'm a different voice than most of these people sitting up here. They've all been elected, the other Laura and I are the only two. I can look at it a little bit different, but one of the things I need to do, and I do, is listen. Because we have to start listening and doing more to get along, or we're not going to get anything done. Because right now, this election is more important than the national election to people in South Dakota. Because we're the ones that are going to make the laws for you guys. We're going to make the regulations. So you have to pay attention to what happens up here. The other thing I want to do, just vote. I mean, the turnout in the primary from both parties was ridiculous. Get out there, tell everybody to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I too want to thank everyone for coming and taking their time to come and ask us questions and get a feel of who the candidates are and what we believe in. I've been in Yankton since 1975 when I came here to go to law school. I married Linda Messler. She taught in school for 42 years, 32 of them in Beadle Elementary School. And I'm a trial lawyer, and she says there's a lot of similarities but dealing with trial lawyers and first graders. And so we get along really well. I've been practicing law for 47 years. We have 4 kids between Linda and I, and each one of our kids have graduated from Yankton High School, and I think they got a great education there, and they've all gone on to do, other things. And of course, we have 6 grandchildren as well. I've served on many different community events and committees during my time in Yankton. I was on the initial Yankton Foundation Board, which I think is a very important board for our community. I've served on United Way, and I've served 2 terms with the Senior Center, which I think is probably one of the best organizations in our town. Really, in some ways, a real quiet one because we do a lot of things for a lot of people, and that's really, really important. I've served in the legislature for 10 years. I'll be going, if I get elected this time, for 12 years. I served 6 years, and then I had cancer and then COVID, and so I took a couple of years off, and now I've run twice since then. During my time in the legislature, I'm currently the Assistant Speaker of the House. I've served on chairman of both Judiciary as well as the Education Committee. I'm on the E-Board, which is the executive board that meets during the summer, as well as serving on different summer committees. And so it's been a joy to do that and an honor to serve you in District 18. And I want you to remember when you go to the vote, I like Mike.
Thank you. Our first question is, what is your position on the Second Amendment rights, particularly regarding red flag laws? Red flag laws allow temporary firearm removal from individuals believed to be at risk of harming themselves or others. We're going to start with you, Lauren.
Well, as you can probably guess, as the treasurer of the Yankton County Sharpshooters, I am a huge supporter of the Second Amendment. I believe that if you start with red flag laws, you are going to slowly, that's the first step, if not of many, to start slowly chipping away at our rights to our Second Amendment. The reason our founding fathers put it as number 2 is because it is very important. And it's not just about hunting. It's about keeping ourselves, our property, our families safe. That's the reason why, and especially, and also too, the fact that if our government gets out of control, we the people can stand up and defend ourselves. That's the reason. I taught U.S. history, and I taught the Founding Fathers and the reason for that Second Amendment, and that's what it's for there. It's for protection. It is there to defend ourselves. And so it's very important that we do not start chipping away at that Second Amendment. People need to have free access to whatever guns they may need or if they want, because again, our Founding Fathers put that in the Bill of Rights, number 2. It's very, very, very important.
Julie, you go next.
Oh,
It might be easier if
Okay,
you just go,
that's
because
fine.
we did not coordinate on the order that
Okay,
she has
sorry.
them listed on how I put the name tag, so.
okay. As far as the Second Amendment, of course I support the Second Amendment. It is what our forefathers had. I will say, I never grew up in a family that hunted, had guns. It was a little bit foreign to me. My husband is a huge hunter. I mean, I think that's absolutely what we need it for. And I do think there is a sense of personal safety. However, the majority of the people, over 65% of the people in the United States, thinks there should be some sort of reasonable gun legislation. So I don't think we're talking about taking away all the guns. That's just simply not going to happen. And especially in South Dakota, it absolutely would not happen. But I look at my terms that I've served on the Yankton School Board for almost 12 years, currently serving as the president. If you knew how much money and time we have spent protecting the children, how much money we have spent for safety corridors as people come in for these kind of things, the drills we have to have, the safety drills, because there is a risk. There simply is. So I do believe that we need to be sensible about what we do as far as our gun legislation so that we protect all, that we allow people to have the ability. I have no problem with that we allow people to own guns. But I do believe that there sincerely should be some sort of thought about it. I will tell you that you look at in the schools, if you looked at our strategic plan, one of the things we did and we highlighted was mental wellness. Because that's the truth. I mean, when you get the guns in the hands of the wrong people is where the risk lies. Most people, very responsible, not an issue. But we have to be careful about the most vulnerable.
Well, thank you. I'm a member of the NRA, and I would be against that type of legislation. We've had those type of things come before the legislature before, and we have defeated them, trying to put restrictions on that. You know, the problem is trying to define, even if you were to get into that discussion, there's always who's defining what makes up someone who shouldn't be able to have access to firearms. And I think it's a very difficult thing to do when you look at other legislation that we have on something very sensitive as this. We can't even get an agreement as to what that language would be, and certainly at this point there'd be no reason to change that.
Okay, well, the Second Amendment was put in place, basically, you know, it's the right to bear arms. It has very little to do with hunting. Hunting is kind of it's like a byproduct of gun ownership. The Second Amendment was put in place to bear arms and to form a militia against a tyrannical government. That is the reason for the Second Amendment. So red flag laws would actually be something that would attack our Second Amendment rights. I firmly and completely believe that our Second Amendment rights must be upheld. As a matter of fact, I and a group of people brought Second Amendment constitutional, make Yankton County a Second Amendment constitutional county. I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment, and I believe that all Second Amendment rights should be and remain intact. So that's kind of how I feel about it. There we go.
I have a nephew who is a gunsmith. He sells any kind of gun you want. He's legal to carry, to do sell lots of them, but he's very picky about what he sells. He's also picky about who he sells to. If you can't go through 4 computers of a research, you don't get a gun from him. My brother, for 20-some years, ran the gun show here in town. I come from a long line, we had guns. But they talk about the Second Amendment. When they created the Second Amendment, we didn't have the guns we have today. I'd like to see somebody load a gun, put the powder in, put the shell in, versus somebody who comes out with an AK-47. There's a big difference in the guns today. And I worry about some of the, if you look at all the guns that have been used in shootings, most of them have been a semi-automatic weapon. Most of them have been the young people who had problems and shouldn't have had the guns. In this couple of last cases, they're now going after the parents who allowed to do it. The last time I was out at the gun show, and I had a table there, I saw 3 or 4 different parents come in and buy a 16-year-old kid an AK-style gun. Now, that's not a smart thing to do, if you ask me, but that's me. Thank you.
Question number 2, how do you feel about landowner rights regarding eminent domain, specifically on carbon pipelines and other utilities? What is your stance on how private land should be treated? I'll start with you, Sarah.
I am a proponent of private property rights. I think it's very important. I think that's kind of the whole system of our government. When we own something, we should be in control of how that is done. I think there are a lot of intricacies of the carbon pipeline, and to be honest, it's really in the court's hands right now. They were not decided that they legally couldn't call themselves a common carrier, so it's a little bit of a moot point. And it was never even going to come through Yankton in this. So I believe that we should have as much personal property right. Eminent domain should only be used in the rarest of circumstances, and something that affects all. You know, you think about when the electrical panels came through and the railroads came through. Those were types of situations where eminent domain was done. But I do believe that this issue is a bit of a moot one since it's in the courts, and the Supreme Court has already put it down. I will tell you that I do think the pipeline in general, while I wouldn't support it, it does have a lot of good, there's a good germ of what they're trying to do, and to trying to get our corn growers more profit in another area. And so I do believe that the reason behind it isn't all necessarily negative.
Well, thank you. I certainly believe in property rights as well, but you know, the rights that we have are not absolute rights. 2 years ago, when the bill came up about whether or not to support that bill, I didn't feel like it met the definition of a commodity carrier, and so I voted against it. But I did vote for the bill this time. And you know, the whole idea of property rights, is really not a new discussion. I mean, how many years ago was it that we voted on zoning laws? And what do zoning laws do? They determine what you can build, where you can build it, how big you can build it, how tall you can build it, and that impacts our individual rights. You know, this pipeline, when I look at eminent domain, there's nothing wrong with eminent domain. We've used it for roads, electrical utilities. The Summit Center over there, our high school, is based upon eminent domain. But let's get something very clear. Those instances became actual ownerships. And in this instance here, this pipeline is being used underneath it so that the farmers who have it, are able to use the surface land. They get compensated if it's damaged before or after. There has to be a depth that's actually a foot deeper than what the federal regulations are concerned. So that's not necessarily bad. You know, the thing that I really am disappointed about is how this issue is being used against individuals and individuals who are running for office. They're using it to try to divide us as a community, and I think that's really unfortunate. You know, Reagan said, if you vote for me 80% of the time, you're my friend, you're my ally, and you're not a 20% traitor.
Okay. Could you read the question again?
How do you feel about landowner rights regarding eminent domain, specifically on carbon pipelines and other utilities? What is your stance on how private land should be treated?
Okay, so this is in direct reference to SB 201, a bill that was passed in legislation this past session in 2024. It is now referred law 21. And it is in direct relation to a CO2 pipeline that has been introduced on the eastern side of South Dakota that would go all the way to North Dakota to sequester CO2. My husband and I farm. We take corn to the ethanol plants. Strong supporter of ethanol. CO2, the ethanol plants are being paid to put that CO2 in that pipe. CO2 is extremely valuable commodity. It can be used for several things. So first of all, CO2 pipeline, when you compress it, put it in a pipeline, and under 23,000 pounds of pressure, an 8-inch pipe, which a lot of this pipe that's going across our state is much bigger, it becomes very dangerous. So eminent domain is something that has come up through the CO2 pipeline. It isn't necessarily, SB 201 was not necessarily an eminent domain bill. It was in that direction. But what it is basically forcing people to put something on their land that isn't necessarily safe. And so I will have to cover this next time. Here we go.
Can't do this in 90 seconds.
The pipeline is an interesting topic to even think about, but it doesn't affect us so much here in Yankton County. However, eminent domain is used for many things. One thing you have to be careful about, and I've had a county commissioner talk to me about it, I've had a school board member talk to me about it, and they weren't even from Yankton. They are concerned that if the changes are made drastically in the eminent domain law, it'll change what they can do as board members, make it harder for them to get things. So that's what their big thing about it is. And in the CO2 thing, right now, one of the big arguments in the case is it's not a commodity. I told my wife that when we first started talking about this. It's not a commodity. Now, they're making it into a commodity, but that doesn't mean it is. And normally you have to have it, when you're going to do eminent domain, it has to be something that'll serve everybody. And this doesn't necessarily serve everybody. How much money would Yankton get from it? I don't think we'd get much of any. So that's something that's not going to serve everybody. It's not like a power line that they put in. It's not like roads that we're going to put in. Those are things you have to think about. How does it affect everybody, not just a few?
Referred Law 21, or SB 201, is the reason why I stepped forward and ran that race in June. It's what finally put me over the top and said, I have to do something about this. Again, the concern is private property rights. And the thing about it is when you looked at SB 201, it was, when you talk about eminent domain, you're talking about construction that's going to benefit everybody, and it's the government that's doing it. It's your local school district. Maybe it's your county. What we have going on out here north of Yankton, the state government is putting in Highway 81, 4 lanes to make it safe. And the thing about it is with all of this is private companies getting in bed with our government and taking away private property rights. Plain and simple. And the thing about it with SB 201, it doesn't stop with carbon pipelines. It also goes into electrical lines. So we're talking about if NextEra wants to come in or somebody like that wants to come in and put a wind farm, and our ordinance say, well, sorry, we're not going to allow it. They're going to go to the PUC and say, you know what, we want to put it in, and then the PUC is going to decide instead of our local government. It is so important that Referred Law 21 gets defeated in November. Very important. The other thing I don't like is the fact that it takes away local control. It takes away control from our county commissioners.
Thank you. Question number 3. What is your view on IM 28 regarding the tax repeal for items of human consumption? Mike, we'll start with you.
Well, IM 28 would be a disaster for our state, our cities, and our counties. We got to remember that this tax, what it would do is it would remove all the tax except for on alcohol and prepared food. And, we got to remember too, our tax revenue, sales tax, that's our biggest type of income. And from that standpoint, we have people coming from out of state. Our tourism brings people in who are buying these products that helps us with that amount of money. The amount of money that we get from tobacco is like $65 million, and the amount that we have for sales tax is in the 40% range as far as where our budget is. So if those things are taken away from us, where is the replacement that's going to be for those funds? 80% of our budget is dealing with expenditures that go to education and to help our disabled and people in that regard. And so they would be ones that would really be hurt. You know, a lot of times you hear from the proponents that, well, the cities and the counties can continue to do that tax, but the truth of the matter is that the state can't tax it. Our Constitution says neither can the city and the counties as well. And so, you know, I hear people that are saying, well, you know, we have a lot of budget and we have some fat in there, but they never say where and they never say who's going to get hurt by reducing it. And so I think it also affects our AAA rating, and it also affects our tobacco settlement we made several years ago.
Which way?
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, in the primary, when the definition of the sales tax was not quite defined, and now that IM 28 has basically been clearly defined, that it would remove tax on tobacco products, marijuana gummies that are used for municipal medicinal purposes, and over-the-counter medications, it completely takes all of the rational reasoning away from removing the sales tax on food. I think they need to go back to the drawing board and do a better job of writing their amendment to our Constitution. And I do think that they're even unclear on how much money it would actually cost the state. But I just wanted to clarify also so no, I will not be supporting it. The answer on the SB 201 referred law 201. We have to remember that when it comes to our property, government is supposed to be closest to the people. And when it comes, and I'm talking about, once again, eminent domain is not part of referred law 21. Referred law 21 basically takes the rights of the county commission, the municipalities, and the townships away when it comes to CO2 pipelines, transmission facilities, which are your wind and solar, and any other kind of transmission lines, and puts it in the hands of the PUC. We cannot support that. Here we go.
Thank you. This is an interesting one of the most interesting amendments I think we have, or initiated measures. We're one of 2 states that has a grocery tax, us and Mississippi. Do we want to be compared to Mississippi? But, you know, I keep reading about it, and the state keeps changing the numbers. The first number I heard was about $109 million. The next number I heard coming out of the state was $175 million. The third number I heard, now somebody else, some other outfit came up and it's going to affect not only that, but another $75 million on top of all that. And there are ways around that. I know the Attorney General said a couple different times that there's different things we could do and how it's defined. One thing we could do, Mike brought up the taxes to tourists. At one point, Florida had a tax that the only ones who paid it were the tourists. And if you showed up at your groceries, showed them your driver's license, then you didn't pay the tax. But if you didn't have a South Dakota driver's license, you paid the tax. That's just one idea.
I think you're up first. Oh, I forgot. Sorry.
We clear here?
This is so confusing.
When it comes to this, you know, I agree with what Julie said. When we debated during the primary season, there wasn't a clear definition on what this was exactly going to look like. I am for cutting taxes on food. Potatoes, meat, fruit, vegetables, dairy. Okay? Any of you who've been to the grocery store lately see how much tax we are paying on our food. And again, it goes back to we need food to survive. The thing about it is I'm not going to support this. And the reason why is because the definition has become clear. Tobacco is not something we need, and it will not be it will be tax-free. That's not right. And we talk about gummies and marijuana, whatever. You know, that's ridiculous. And that's the thing, is that the intent of this was to be just food, things that we need to survive, and to give families a break. Talk to any family. I talked to a family that's 4 boys yesterday. Hokey Pete, talking about their grocery bill. and the taxes that they're paying. I would love to give them a break, but I just can't with this one because of the fact that it takes away tax on tobacco as well. The other thing too is when Thursday when we had that forum that Thrive had, the other thing too is Rick Weiland kept saying, well, whatever mistakes there is in it, we'll have the legislature fix it this winter for us. When is the last time the legislature has fixed something correctly for us?
I think this is a really difficult topic. Who doesn't want more money in their pocket to spend in the way that they want to spend? And who doesn't want to help those that probably are in the most need? So I think at the heart of it, it's good. And if you remember, Kristi Noem used this as a platform when she ran for governor. She thought we could do this. So I know that there is support on both sides for something like this. However, it is flawed in many, many ways. And I know that it's difficult, especially when we think in the school system is coming from the school board, is that we know there's lots of vulnerable kids in our district. We know that there are families that have difficulty with food and they're food insecure. In fact, if you look at how we are funded, we're funded by the amount of free and reduced lunches that that our students qualify for. And at one time we had all of our elementaries on that type of title funding. So you know that it's here, it's right here, right now that there are issues. Thank goodness Yankton is forward in the way that we don't take away. There's school districts out there that once the child is given food, they take it back because they couldn't pay. And we don't want to ever get into that situation. But I will say that both SDEA, the South Dakota Education Association, and the South Dakota Associated School Boards are not supporting this bill for some of the same reasons of how we are, how we're classifying what that human consumption. I do believe there is good to it. I wish that the legislators would fix it, but I do think that this needs to be handled in the legislature and not an initiated measure. Excuse me.
Question number 4. What is your stance on Amendment G, an initiated amendment establishing a right to abortion in the state constitution? We'll start with you, Julie.
Oh, sure. Okay, Amendment G is the bill that would take away all abortion regulation in the state of South Dakota. I am 100% against Amendment G. I am a staunch, I ran on a pro-life platform. As a matter of fact, unlike Lauren, the first year I ran is because of legislation that was trying to be pushed in South Dakota allowing abortions at 9 months. So I am a staunch no, I'm a strict no, very, very firm no on Amendment G, and I'm 100% pro-life. Except in the case of the life of the mother, and believe that the abortion regulations that we have in place in the state are adequate and a good place for us to be in our state. There you go.
The biggest problem with what we have in law right now, there are absolutely no exceptions. If the mother's going to die, too bad.
We have health of the mother.
That's the way the law reads. If you think about it, that's what they're, and you know, you can say that's not what it says, but that we have doctors who are not practicing anymore because they're afraid they'll do something wrong and end up in jail. Everybody's pro-life. But the problem in this one, you're taking away the rights of the woman. Those are rights that have to be taken into consideration. The other thing I'd like to mention is everybody's really concerned about abortion and everything else. But then when we get down the road a couple of years ago, we don't even feed the children in the summertime. So there's a big difference there. So if you're be pro-life all the way along.
I am absolutely 100% pro-life. No different what's about it. I'm going to tell you something. In the fact that when it comes to the woman's health, I was in that position. I was taken down to Omaha. I had lost one twin and I was losing another. I had developed a fever of 104 degrees. And they had to save my life because I already had a daughter at home. The thing about it is when the mother's life is at risk, The thing about it is they're either going to deliver the baby or the baby is going to die anyway because it's not far enough along. The other thing too that I need to also too is the fact that as a science teacher, the cell theory states that if you have one cell, you have life. That is life. And so when people say, well, we have to embrace the science, we got to go with what the science says. Well, let's go with what the science says. The science says when you have one cell, you have life. When does life begin? It begins at conception. I am 100% pro-life, 100%. And I just think that, how many of you think that it is right to abort a baby right before it can be born and be viable? That's crazy.
I think this is one of the most difficult ones that we have to decide on the ballot. There's no question about it. I just think it's so unfortunate this becomes so politicalized and that it deciphers between the parties in many, many ways. And when Roe was overturned, I think it's interesting about how all of a sudden there was all sorts of debate about what is accepted and what's not. And I'm thinking it either we are or we aren't. I hate that we get so politicalized about this. I am pro-life. My faith demands that I'm pro-life. That's important to me. But I'm also not just pro-birth. We need to be doing the kind of things that after that child is born, what we are all about. And I will say this, South Dakota has gone to the ballot twice about this issue. And we left the people, and the people made a choice. And yet we're still here. And so I think the fact that this is on the ballot right now, I really think it's going to be up to the people. And we have to respect that as a group, we understand what the people want and work within that.
Well, I'm going to be voting against this, but I think, we need to look at it for a couple of different ways. Number one, I think it's a real mistake that's been presented to our citizens under an amendment basis. I think that's really hard to change, and I think over the times of the years, we think way back from the time of Roe v. Wade, what was the science then? What is the science now? We can't even come on any kind of a consensus as to what that has been. And during the legislative process, we have attempted many different times and different bills to look at it and have not been able to do that. But a lot of people have worked on this issue for many, many years, and a lot of people don't realize that it was about 1986, I had a case that set the law in the state of South Dakota that didn't exist before that. At that time in South Dakota, this wasn't the case, but by law, the case that I had was brought before the South Dakota Supreme Court, which held that a viable fetus was a person in a wrongful death case. And that shouldn't have sounded like a big deal, but it was a real big deal. But look how much has changed over the years. And I think, there's a time and place for our people to vote on these issues, because I agree, there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration, and a science just continually is constantly changing. But to do it and put it in an amendment of our Constitution is not the way to do that. I think it has to be something that's living and breathing that we can look at.
She needs the mic back.
Dang it, thanks.
Thank you. For our final question, the state of South Dakota Constitution is clear. Public schools must be funded. Nothing regarding private schools or homeschool funding. Do you support using state tax dollars for vouchers so kids can go to private school or be homeschooled? We'll start with you, Paul.
This is another reason I ran. Every year, there's been a vote on vouchers for South Dakota. Every year it's lost, but every year it gets more and more votes. Constitution says public. That's what it says. It does not say private or homeschool. If you start taking money out of the education budget, and I know the one figure I've heard is $109 million is what you want to try the first time. That's going to decimate what happens in South Dakota. That means school systems, like everyone here in Yankton County, in District 18, is going to lose teachers. They're going to lose funding because the state can't afford to have vouchers and public schools. Now, the other thing is, most private schools have programs for you to get money or work it off. I served 6 years on the Sacred Heart School Board. Every year we had 3 or 4 parents who wanted their children there and couldn't do it. They didn't have the money. They worked it off. They would come in, clean rooms. They would do painting in the summertime. There's all kinds of ways to do it. Plus, all the studies say, if you go to school vouchers, the ones that uses them the most are the rich people who can afford to pay for it. Is that what we want? Think about it. That's not what our Constitution says.
Yes, I am for vouchers, but here's the thing. There better not be any strings attached. And that's the thing that is important, is the fact that if there is money being used, that there cannot be any strings attached to it. Any things that the parents or the schools have to do going backward. The other thing too is the fact that I do not want an astronomical amount given to these families, because the thing about it is in Iowa where vouchers have come in, the thing about it is that the schools have started to, these private schools have increased their tuition. Because again, these parents have this money. And so those are the two things that I will look at. The thing you have to remember is the fact that I represent all of District 18 as a senator. When I get to that point, we have families that do homeschool. We do have families that send their kids to private school. I represent them as well. And the other thing too about this is the fact that as the administrator, the past administrator and teacher at MVCA, my concern is the student. I have seen students who have come from public and come to MVCA and done a fabulous job. They've struggled in public, come to MVCA, they do a great job. I've seen kids who have come from homeschool to MVCA and they've done a great job. I've seen kids who have come to MVC and have struggled, and then they go to public school and they do very well. My concern is the student and the environment that is best for them to learn. And if that is at home or in a private school, I think that they need to be helped.
I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all education system for our children, and that's why we have options for our children. Have options. As Lauren said, for the Christian, our own children went to Sacred Heart School. That was a faith decision for us. We thought that was important. Amazing teachers and a great experience. But I'm not going to make the public pay for my faith choice with my children. That's just not fair. It's not how it is constitutionally. We're set up. We just got through talking about the food tax and how we can't afford that. We can't afford what that food tax is. You know, the way that the way that you fund school is everybody pays the property tax, and then the state gives you per pupil, right? So there's money that will be extra money to our funding formulas, and we have a constitutional need to educate all our children. And that is through the public school system, and that is how it happens. That is the great equalizer. That doesn't mean that parents can't make the choice. Like I said, that we made the choice. And I also have seen many of the statistics, and Iowa's a great example. All they did is just raise the money. So that's going to be more, or they raise the tuition rates. And that's going to be more of a reason and more of a tax for the South Dakota citizens by taking that and bringing it towards these schools. And when you say no strings attached, that boggles me, because that is the whole idea behind we have to have accountability about what's happening in our schools when you give taxpayer money.
Well, excuse me, Sarah has served on the school board. I served on it for 22 years, and I would not, under any circumstances, support a voucher system. You know, it was brought up, I think, there was $109 million, but that doesn't mean that that's all the total cost would be. That's just an estimate of those who were maybe homeschooling now and would not take into consideration other individuals. So it'd be a significantly more amount of money than that. And already the South Dakota has passed a law that allows about $7 million for insurance companies to pay in towards to allow private students to use funds to go to private schools. You know, the accountability thing is really important, because right now homeschoolers do not have any accountability whatsoever. If money was given to them, they could use it to help pay car payments, house payments, whatever it might be. There's no accountability as to what academics is used. Whereas the public school system and our taxpayers, they require accountability for us at all times. You know, I heard someone say this, and I think it's really a good example. You know, the city has provided us tennis courts to use for free. Now, if you want a tennis court in your own backyard, or you want to have a tennis court in some private company or private group, you can go ahead and do that, but the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay to put in a tennis court for you.
Okay. I'm the only one up here who's not been either on the school board or a teacher. But I am a mom and a grandma. And what we need to remember here, and I voted, it was defeated. I did vote for the voucher program in the state legislature, only because the people of South Dakota are speaking. In 2021 to 2022, 2022 to 2023, our homeschool students, the number of homeschool students grew by 94%. 94%. Remember, the South Dakota Constitution, Article 8 of the Constitution, requires that your property taxes go towards public schools. We have a responsibility to educate our children through the public school. We also have a responsibility to those children. We have a responsibility to those parents. And we have a responsibility to teachers. Teachers, I'm not sure what the solution is. I really am not. But I do know that our teachers are hurting. Our teachers need help. And I don't know if it's going to come through some kind of a situation where we have a little bit more of a free enterprise, where there's charter schools, more private schools. I don't know. But teachers need help, whether we allocate more of the dollars that we're already giving schools towards more paras. But my main concern is the children, the parents, and the teachers. Okay. Oh, sorry.
We'll start with our closing statements, Lauren.
And those are 2 minutes, right?
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
2 minutes for closing statements.
Well, again, I just want to say thank you for attending today. Thank you to Thrive. Thank you for the Interchange for hosting this event. How many of you want change in Pierre? I join you, because that's the reason why I ran in the primary in June. I want change in Pierre. I want Pierre to change, and I want Pierre to protect my constitutional rights. I want Pierre to listen to our county commissioners. I want them to not strapping them with unfunded mandates. Okay? I want Pierre to stop placing regulations on my family and friends who are trying to start their own businesses or keep their businesses running. And finally, I would like Pierre to just plain listen. Listen to the people who put them there. I'm going to tell you something. The people in Pierre, in the Senate, right now, the leadership, the ones who are being controlled by lobbyists and their foreign government, foreign business entities, don't want me in Pierre. They see me as a threat. Why? Because if I go to Pierre, along with all those other underdogs who won in June, we are going to vote for new leadership in the Senate. We are going to vote for change. And the reason we are voting for change is because right now in the Senate, we have leadership that's beholden to lobbyists and to out of foreign entities, businesses. And we want to take that power that they have, and we want to vote for new leadership, and then we'll put that power back into the people of South Dakota. The people that voted for them and the people of District 18. So if you want change in Pierre, please vote for Lauren Nelson on November 5th. Thank you.
I guess the reason why I think, well, first of all, thank you very much for coming and taking your time. I always appreciate it when people want to know the issues. But I think probably the reasons why I think it's important, in that I would tell people, why would you vote for me? I'd tell you to vote for me because we're proven, we've already been in the community, we're proven, we've held leadership positions. We've held leadership positions in our professional roles, in our private roles. We volunteer, we've done all sorts of things in this community, and we've shown our commitment to this, because after all, at the end of the day, this is a local election about local issues and about local voices. I'm not coming in with an agenda. I'm not part of this grassroots effort where we're talking about in the States. That means there's an agenda, that they're coming in with things. I'm coming in to represent, just like I did in the school board, to represent the voices of Yankton and the surrounding areas. And that's very, very important. I'm a positive person. I'm not saying no, no, no to everything. You listen to what people have to say, even if it isn't exactly what I would want personally. It's important that we get back to true representation. One of the things I've done in my campaign, I don't know the answers. I have gone and talked to people, bankers, lawyers, realtors, just different people in this community about what their issues are, so I know what the issues are. And it's very important. And you might be surprised, as I am, about the amount of Republican support I've had. I'm used to running in elections that doesn't have a D or R behind their names. And I bet there's very few people out in this community that are truly all Republican and all Democrat. We're people, we have unique needs, and it's important that whoever we elect is going to take those into account and bring them to peer.
You can go next.
Go ahead.
Well, I too want to thank you for doing that. It's been mentioned earlier about why to go to peer. Well, I went to peer to get some things done and to fix some things, and I think that I have done that. This last year, I was a prime sponsor on 7 different bills that really was very important to me. One of the biggest things I did was one of the drafters of the bill that set a minimum teacher salary. We have to get off of being the 50th and 55th place in the states as far as our teacher salaries are concerned. I passed a bill that regulated some drug pricing of those people who are discriminating against that, and that's important for our elders in that regard. I've supported 2 bills that dealt with local businesses to make it some continuity with that so we could do business across the states. I was a sponsor on a bill that provided those people who get injured are able to get some information so they can get educated and get back into the workforce. I also was a prime sponsor of a bill to make land transfers easier through our quiet title actions. And one of the other bills that I think was really important that I was a prime sponsor on was to prevent access to our minors to obscene material. I think those are important things to do. So, you can talk about going to peer and want to change this or that, but here's the problem, here's the deal. It takes 36 votes to get something out of the House, it takes 17 votes to get it out of the Senate, and you need 1 from the governor. And you got to be able to get things done. And over this last few years, and particularly this last year, as the Assistant Speaker of the House, I was able to get those bills passed as a prime sponsor. And so did I get something done? Yes. Did anybody else up here get anything passed? No.
Okay. Once again, thank you so much for coming. And, peer is much different than local government, much different. And it is full of bureaucrats and lobbyists. And it doesn't matter if there's an L, R, D behind your name. It doesn't matter. Non-party affiliate, it doesn't matter. What matters is who's doing what for South Dakota. And no, I haven't had any bills passed in legislature, but I did get one bill vetoed, and that was the central bank digital currency bill in the UCC, and I was able to get the governor to veto that bill. So no, it is a very, very difficult thing to get any legislature through any kind of legislation. So it is a big deal to pass bills. But more often, I almost think we need to trim back or amend more bills than we present. We need to remember that when we put mandates on schools, or we have put mandates on counties, we allow the money to fund it. I also voted for the bill to increase teacher pay. Our teachers are extremely important to South Dakota, extremely important to our students, our children. And you know what? Teachers sometimes they fall in the role of parents. Teachers are burdened. We need to take care of our teachers. We need to take care of our counties. We need to take care of our healthcare providers. We need to take care of our state. And by sending me to peer, I will continue to be a watchdog for you, continue to make sure that bills aren't being passed that are going to hurt your freedom, your liberty, and stick to the Constitution. And I will always be truthful and represent you with transparency and truth. Thank you.
I ran because I'd never run before. And my wife told me I had to or shut up. But in the meantime, I also represent a group of people that go there without an agenda. I have one agenda though, I'll admit that. There is no reason the state of South Dakota cannot feed children in the summertime. They have refused to do it, which means we turned down $7.5 million, which would have cost us under $500,000 to have it to feed the children. And if children aren't fed, they can't learn. That's my pet peeve. The other thing is, these guys give us some great things. Who's had the supermajority for the last 20 years? And what have they done? Now, Mike's got some few things he's mentioned that he's done. And we have promises of what they want to do and what they're gonna do, and less government and everything. But every year we have more and more government. You know, yes, we have the great funding for the teachers coming up here, but there's a lot of new rules and regulations that came along with that schools never had. And here's Yankton and 12 other schools that already pay more than what that number is. Keep thinking of that. We added a whole bunch of new rules for the school boards that have to follow and turn in every month. You know, so there's that type of things. So you have to look at that. I'm willing to listen to anybody, and I want to talk to everybody. I'm a little bit like Sarah. I've talked to some people, and not just the bankers and the lawyers. I've talked to some farmers out there, and they want to do things. One big thing for the farmer right now is the farm bill, and it's not getting passed. And we got 3 Republicans sitting there not doing a whole lot about it. They think they say they are, but they're still not doing it because they don't want. Some of the Republicans don't want to feed other people. Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of Interchange and Yankton Thrive for coming today, and everybody who submitted questions. So we had questions for the candidates today. So thank you for coming and taking your time, and the B&D and Felicity here as well.
So thank you to KYNT for the live streaming of the event. If you're looking to go back and watch a recording of it, we will post a link to that on our website, or you can go to KYNT's social media and find the streaming link as well. On your table, there's a little table tent of events and activities that are coming up. We wanted